International Women's Day is here, a time for all of those who care about women's equality to celebrate the achievements of women, both contemporary and historical, and to focus on gender equality in our society. The tech sector can mark International Women's Day 2025 with greater introspection over its still sizable gender divide. Tech leaders need to enter into open dialogue over how to make tech careers more attractive to women and to empower women within their workforce. You're listening to the IT Pro podcast. Hi, I'm Rory Bathgate. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking to Elizabeth Barr, head of the Cisco Networking Academy in the UK, Ireland, and Nordics, to explore what International Women's Day means in 2025 and how young women are entering the tech workforce. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So we're recording this just ahead of International Women's Day. By the time the listeners are hearing it, it's just around the corner. To start with, what does the day represent in 2025?
So I think, going back to the origins of International Women's Day, it originated, around the early 1900s amidst women's rights movements in North America and Europe. And then throughout the 20th century and the 21st century, and of course, with globalization and the acceleration of digital communications, we've seen the day evolve and expand enormously, now to really include and encompass diverse women's issues across many different cultures and societies. For me personally, in 2025, and I think I probably speak on behalf of many other women across the globe, it remains a very significant day. I think on the one hand, because it represents a fantastic opportunity to take a step back, reflect, and celebrate and highlight women's successes. For me, this absolutely includes the many inspirational women that I have the privilege of working with every day and having in my network. So I think first and foremost, it's always a great moment to empower girls, women, and also allies. But at the same time, it is also a powerful opportunity to address and raise awareness around the gender imbalance that continues to persist in the tech industry and beyond. And I think we only have to look at the statistics, right? Women account for less than 20% of computer science degrees. We represent around 25% of the tech workforce, which is much lower in areas like cybersecurity, for example. So whilst, yes, we have seen improvements, I think it's really important to use International Women's Day as a moment to raise awareness around the ongoing inequalities that women face, advocate for policies, and then critically drive action towards accelerating gender parity. And I think it also goes without saying that this shouldn't just be a pursuit that's dedicated to one day of the year. It absolutely should be an everyday pursuit. But nonetheless, I think International Women's Day still remains a very important day and a great opportunity to raise awareness and accelerate change.
Of course, you've raised a number of interesting points there. Just to zero in on one to begin with, that importance of educational outreach and ensuring that women do end up doing computing degrees and moving into the tech sector. This is something that we've spoken about on the podcast before, giving young girls in particular opportunities to pursue STEM right the way through school. And I know it's one of your focuses in Women of Cisco UK and Ireland STEM outreach. I'm wondering if you could tell us about what's already being done in this space and what more we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as you say, their STEM outreach programs are absolutely critical when we want to inspire and empower more girls and women to consider pursuing STEM education and careers. And in my role, I've seen this firsthand countless times. Maybe to backpedal a little bit and better introduce myself and my role. So I lead our Cisco Networking Academy program, which is our largest corporate social responsibility initiative at Cisco and all around IT training and education. So equipping and inspiring learners from all backgrounds and helping them to explore career pathways in tech. And then I also sit on our board for Women of Cisco and lead our STEM outreach programs in the UK and Ireland. So one program that we ran recently with the Cisco Networking Academy in the UK, Ireland, was the Cisco Cyber Camps. So this was open to girls and non-binary students aged 13 to 19. And in a nutshell, the participants completed a cybersecurity training course which was certification aligned to the CCST cybersecurity certification. And then we also had additional wraparound support. So forums where the participants could engage with each other. And we had an amazing team of all female cybersecurity educators from all corners of the UK, leading regular sessions and webinars aligned to the course content. And I think when we were designing the program, having this all-female team of cybersecurity educators was really important, because it allows the participants to have these role models and to see leaders that look like them and actually think, okay, this is achievable. You know, you can be a successful STEM professional coming from different walks of life. And the program's still ongoing at the moment, and we've reached over 1,500 participants to date, which is, you know, really fantastic. And then with Women of Cisco, and also we have a fantastic work experience program that we call Pathways, that we actually recently celebrated our 10th anniversary for, which was a big milestone. We really make a point of showcasing different career pathways in tech. You know, in a company like Cisco, not everyone is working in an engineering role, you know, quite the opposite. We have people in finance, we have people in HR, you know, innovation roles, sales. Even within sales, you've got account managers, solutions engineers, you've got sales specialists. So I think it's important to illustrate that. And also that to work in tech, you don't have to work in a big tech company like Cisco. You know, one key example being the NHS, which has an enormous NHS digital function, or, you know, many girls and young women are interested in fashion. When I'm doing online shopping, I'm using an application which has been developed by and project managed by tech professionals. So I think it's really key to illustrate, you know, these different opportunities to break down stereotypes, and also showcasing different routes into tech. You know, I think some people still have this perception that you need to start coding as soon as you come out the womb and kind of have this very linear route to getting into a tech role. When I think of the people that I work with at Cisco, myself included, most of us have had a very squiggly path into tech and, you know, very much stumbled into it. I mean, I studied languages for my undergraduate degree. I did a master's in management and ended up in tech because it's something that, you know, I've always been very interested in. But again, showcasing that there's no one route that you need to take to get into tech. So I think that, you know, these STEM outreach initiatives are really important in showcasing the role models and trying to break down those stereotypes to show girls and young women that, you know, there probably is a place for them within tech, as long as it's something that they're, you know, interested in pursuing.
That's a really interesting point there on demonstrating the breadth of the tech sector and showing the kind of range and quality of roles available within it. When it comes to enabling these schemes, say you're a business leader looking to enable a STEM outreach scheme, where should you start there? Is it about allocating necessary resources? Is it about giving staff a space to collaborate on these kind of schemes?
I think it really starts with creating a culture where employees feel like they're empowered to give back and get involved with these kind of initiatives. I mean, at Cisco, for example, we have 10 what we call time to give days, which are essentially volunteering days that we can use on top of our, you know, annual leave, public holidays, etc., to give back. And often we do this with groups of employees. You know, it could be a STEM outreach activity, it could be supporting a food bank or another area. So on the one hand, it's a great way of giving back, but also it's a great way of making new connections within the business, because you're often, you know, going into these volunteering days with people that you might not usually connect with. So I'd say it starts with creating that culture. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be starting from scratch. There are fantastic programs out there, like, for example, the STEM Ambassadors program, which is run by an organization called STEM Learning, where you can sign up on an individual level and it gives you a marketplace of volunteering opportunities for STEM outreach, which could be going and giving a careers talk in a school or supporting an existing careers day. So, you know, people can get involved in that way as well. So yeah, I'd say it starts with creating that culture, and then also not necessarily reinventing the wheel. You know, there are existing programs out there that you can use. And I'd also say reach out to other businesses. You know, at Cisco, as I'm sure many of the listeners know, we have a huge network of partners and customers. And in my role, even though I work in, social impact and CSR, I do work with a lot of customers and partners where we join forces and collaborate on these kind of initiatives. So I'd say reach out to other organizations within your network as well to learn about what they're doing and see if there's something that can be replicated.
On that point of creating the culture to begin with, what can be done to bring women into the tech sector and make the sector feel like a welcoming environment for women? Because that's something you see in a lot of surveys, a lot of responses about maybe reluctance for entering the tech sector in the first place.
Yeah, so I'd say it starts at the grassroots level with those STEM outreach initiatives, which I think are really important for beginning to attract that diverse tech talent pipeline. I then say, secondly, a key area is having inclusive hiring practices. And this actually starts with a job description itself, and I don't remember the exact statistics, so don't quote me 100%, but I think it's something like women look at a job description and feel that they have to meet around 70 to 80% of the requirements versus around 20 to 30% for a male counterpart, which I think that statistic alone really underscores how influential a job description can be in someone making a decision, whether it's a role that they want to apply for. And businesses can use a lot of tools that are readily available out there to assess whether or not their job descriptions are inclusive. So I'd say start there with the job description itself. And then ensuring that you have inclusive interviewing practices. For example, at Cisco, we have diverse interview panels. We have mandatory training for our recruiters and our hiring managers on things like unconscious bias, which we find has made a big difference. And definitely these kinds of programs are quite unlikely to engender sort of an overnight change. But I think with sustained efforts, they definitely can make a difference. And I mean, at Cisco, we found that now our apprenticeship program has around a 50-50 gender split, which was a big milestone for us. So yeah, I'd say one with STEM outreach and then also looking at inclusive hiring practices as well.
So this is maybe more of a long-term benefit to the sector, laying the groundwork here, and then year on year, you're expecting that you get better returns, as it were, with equality.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's not just about attracting a diverse tech talent pipeline, right? It's also about retention. So how can you support women advancing in their careers? And I think, again, that starts with culture. So employees from all backgrounds feel that they can thrive at all levels within the business. On the one hand, this can come in the form of policies. One thing that we've seen definitely accelerate with the pandemic has been around flexible and smart working practices that really allow employees to better balance their personal and professional lives. But in addition to the policies, you need leaders and individuals from all levels of the business who are setting an example so that employees feel that they can actually adopt these policies. For example, if I see my manager saying, sorry, I need to move this meeting as I've got to take my daughter or son to the doctor, or I need to care for an elderly parent, that makes me feel that if something arises in my personal life, big or small, okay, I can actually take a step back as well. So I think, having those policies and then also leaders that enact examples to make employees feel that they can adopt the policies is really important. I'd also say a big thing at Cisco, which helps with talent retention, is our inclusive communities. I know that some other organizations call these employee resource groups, employee resource organizations, but essentially they are volunteer-led groups that strive to make the business a great place to work for all employees. With Women of Cisco, we have programs like mentoring, sponsorship, executive shadowing, which I've personally done myself and spent time with executives from different parts of the business, which was such an amazing experience. We run events, webinars. Like, for example, recently we had a Let's Talk About It webinar series where we tackle topics like the menopause, endometriosis, baby loss. And I think that was really important in creating a safe space where women at Cisco and allies could come together and sort of have those important conversations and learn more about supporting others and, feeling that they had a space to open up. And then on top of that, we also have specific women development and training programs, like two called Dare and Jump, which again, I've done myself and have been really instrumental, I'd say, in my professional development. So I'd say on the one hand, attracting a diverse tech talent pipeline is crucial, but then also you need the policies and the culture in place to help retain that talent as well.
It's an interesting balance that you've highlighted there between the maybe the formalized schemes, if you like, and also just creating those spaces so that people can come to one another and help build that inclusive environment, as you suggested. When it comes to formalized mentorship schemes, which have often been cited as an effective way to bring more women into the workforce, but also to improve retention in the tech workforce, as you've said, what do you think about the potential for these formalized mentorship schemes? And are there specific qualities that you would look for in a mentor?
Yeah, I think mentoring programs make an enormous difference. Even speaking from my own personal experience, I think from a practical standpoint, it can help you to identify things like, training that you might do to improve within your role, additional experiences that you can get to gain skills that you need to develop into roles that you might be interested in, and even connections. Your mentor might not have all of the answers, but they may be able to connect you with people from other parts of the business or outside that can speak to you about different areas. So it's a great way of expanding your network and learning. But I'd say as well, it's also really important from a confidence standpoint. One thing that many women and men as well struggle with is imposter syndrome. It's something that I've struggled with many times myself, where, often you're the only woman in the room or one of few, and you ask questions around, should I be here? And you have all these sorts of thoughts. And what I found through having a couple of my mentors is that you're not the only one. I remember one of my mentors I was watching on a big all hands call, and she was presenting, a really complex topic, and she looked very polished and very professional. And I thought, wow, she's really great at her role. And she told me afterwards, I was so nervous before that presentation. I was shaking like a leaf under the table, and I was watching everyone else go before me and thinking, why have they asked me to present at this all hands? What am I doing here? And that was quite an eye-opening moment for me, because I thought it was just me that, was having these feelings, but many people from all levels of the business have similar feelings around being an imposter. So I'd say mentoring can really help from a confidence standpoint as well. One specific mentoring program that we ran recently with the Cisco Networking Academy, we ran a career changes program called Women Do Cyber. So it was for unemployed and underemployed women in Scotland who were looking to move into cybersecurity careers. And we ran this in partnership with Scotland Women in Technology and Glasgow Caledonian University. And as part of it, we had technical training, but also a mentoring program where we connected the participants with cybersecurity professionals in Scotland. And again, that was instrumental in helping them to build confidence. A lot of them were saying, I'm really struggling with the program. It's really tough to do alongside other commitments, and I don't feel like maybe I'm good enough to work in cybersecurity. So it was really instrumental there, but also giving them tangible advice around cybersecurity is actually a very broad field. These are the types of jobs that you may consider, or maybe not even in cybersecurity, maybe another area within tech. So yeah, overall, I think mentoring programs are so important, whether that's formal or whether you just go out and find your own mentors with your network, particularly from, a confidence standpoint.
Would you say that there's equal potential in mentoring schemes to improve lateral movement in the tech sector, as well as getting people specifically into the tech sector? So, for example, reskilling or upskilling in a specific area, such as cybersecurity, if you were already in a tech role, but in a slightly different capacity?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Also, because working in tech, it's an extremely fast-paced and ever-evolving industry. The skills that we need now and the roles that exist now probably will not be the same in 5 years, let alone, 10, 15, 20. So I think it's important that you do have programs in place that allow people to move across different areas of the business. One thing we have in Cisco that I've benefited from is called a stretch assignment, where essentially you can apply to a part-time role, I suppose you could say, where you dedicate maybe 4 hours of your week to 8 hours of your week working in a different part of the business. So you're still doing your current role, but you're stretching yourself by working on another project with, a different team and in a different department. So that's quite a nice way of dipping your toe into another area of the business and seeing if it's something that you might be interested in. So I think that's very important. And another thing that I think we're seeing with people who are moving laterally into technical roles is the increased importance and relevancy of industry certifications and the way that, education and training is evolving as a whole. For example, now at Cisco, when we're looking to hire talent, we don't always require a degree, or at least a degree from, a technical area. We might recognize an industry certification as someone demonstrating that they have relevant skills for a particular role. So I'd say that's making it more accessible as well for people to move laterally into different technology roles.
And also it opens up, as you're saying, outside of the degree route. If you're seeking specific roles 5-10 years down the line that don't exist yet, it's not hinged on a decision that you made when you were 18, maybe about what specific degree you wanted to take.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think even looking around the business as Cisco, some people have done STEM degrees. Many of us have not done STEM degrees, myself included, I think I mentioned before. And also many people as well haven't, gone to university at all. So it's quite a big mix.
You mentioned allies earlier. When it comes to allyship, particularly for improving outcomes for women in tech, how can we make sure that the onus isn't simply placed on women, that men get involved as well?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. And when we talk about events like International Women's Day or women's networks, there is often this perception that it is just for women, when that shouldn't be the case. I think events like International Women's Day, yes, are about celebrating the successes of women and raising awareness around the challenges that women face, but that should absolutely be something that women and men are included in as well. I think I mentioned previously that with Women of Cisco, we ran a webinar series called Let's Talk About It, where we talked about, topics like endometriosis and menopause and baby loss. And we really encouraged men to attend these sessions, especially people leaders, because I think it's really important, even if it's not an issue that you're going through yourself, that it's an issue that you're aware of. And if there are people within your team or your colleagues that are going through these issues, you're aware of these, able to listen to them, and you know how to support. So I'd say it's really important that, International Women's Day isn't just for women, but also something that really puts an emphasis on and promotes allyship.
Earlier on, you mentioned the idea of imposter syndrome. And while that's present in every sector, I'm wondering, do you think that's unique in some ways to the tech sector, the level of imposter syndrome, particularly in the light of, as you were saying, how fast-paced the tech sector is, and how quickly it develops, that everyone really is reskilling constantly in the tech sector?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that I hadn't maybe reflected on, but it could be true, given that so many people from all different levels do suffer with imposter syndrome in tech, perhaps particularly women. I mentioned before the Women Do Cyber program that we run with the Cisco Networking Academy. One of the things that I found when speaking to a lot of the participants is that they felt like they had to be almost overqualified when applying for roles. And, this is something we find with career changes, but also people who are entering at, coming out of schools and universities, this pressure to have lots and lots of technical qualifications to, even be considered for an entry-level role. And I think a lot of hiring policies don't help. We hear statistics around you need 5 years of experience to get an entry-level role in cybersecurity and things like this. So I think the culture and hiring that we see doesn't help. But one thing that is really important and that we hear loud and clear from recruiters is the importance of soft skills or human skills. And this is often something that I think women in particular do underplay. Whether you're going for a technical role, non-technical role, early in career, leadership, middle management, having soft skills and human skills are so important for any role within tech. Empathy, the ability to work in a team, lead, communicate in a clear and concise manner. These skills are really, really essential. So sometimes I think people feel a lot of pressure to have a lot of technical qualifications, which is great. But I think also having these soft skills and human skills and seeing the value in these is really important as well.
And maybe emphasizing the importance of those skills could lessen that feeling of imposter syndrome or being hung up on not coming from a degree background, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, 100%. I think if people do sort of accept that technology is always changing, and when you go into a role, you might not know everything that you need to from a technical standpoint, but you can learn on the job. What you will always need are those soft and human skills that you can adapt and evolve as, the tech landscape adapts and evolves as well. So yeah, I think working in tech, you're always having to upskill, whether you're in a technical role or not. And your soft skills and human skills are really something that continue to carry you forward in the career. So yeah, I think having more of an emphasis and appreciation of those can help to reduce imposter syndrome, as people feel less pressure to have all of the technical certifications under the sun.
Another thing you mentioned earlier is the importance of putting a spotlight on the different kinds of roles in the tech sector that are available, and also the different sizes of companies that you can work for within the tech sector. Do you think it's important that we, as well as presenting maybe notable women in big tech companies, also put a spotlight on female startups, particularly in the regions that you cover within your role?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think there is a very widespread perception that everyone working in tech is working for a big tech company like Cisco, which absolutely isn't the case. And I mean, even at Cisco, we have over 1,000 partners in the UK and Ireland alone, which are often smaller companies as well. So whether that be startups or smaller companies or organizations in different sectors, I think promoting role models and showcasing role models in these areas is really important, also to help break down those stereotypes that everyone who works in tech is doing the same role and working for the same type of organization, which absolutely isn't the case. The more diversity of role models that we have with regard to the types of roles that they're doing and the types of businesses that they're working in, the more that we allow, girls and women to see themselves perhaps working in the tech sector. So absolutely, I think it's important to have role models from all different walks of life and different areas within the tech sector.
So quite a lot of the conversation around women entering the tech workforce focuses on school leavers or university leavers. But what more can we do for women who are years on from that and are looking to enter into the tech workforce? And what schemes and routes are available into the tech sector?
Yeah, so I'd say firstly, one of the fantastic shifts that we've seen, particularly in recent years in the tech sector, is around apprenticeship programs. And with apprenticeship programs, for example, the program we have at Cisco, people are working, rotating around different departments. They might spend 6 months working in sales and then move into a customer experience role or an engineering role. But they're also studying towards a degree while completing their apprenticeship program. And a lot of people have a perception that all apprentices are school leavers. And the reality is that, it's open to anyone who's looking to enter the tech workforce. And at Cisco, we have apprentices who have previously worked in hospitality, have worked in the police, have worked for local authorities. I mean, many different former careers. And they use the program as a way of entering into tech and getting that diverse experience, working in different departments while also getting a related digital degree. So I'd say first and foremost that apprenticeships are a really good opportunity for, school leavers, but also people looking to career change. Also, I would say that industry certifications are becoming increasingly recognized as a valid qualification for transitioning into tech. So, I can't speak for the whole industry, but at Cisco, for example, we don't always require degrees for entry-level roles. We recognize alternative qualifications like industry certifications. So I think for career changers to demonstrate an interest in technology, an industry certification is always a really, really good place to start, which could be in networking, it could be programming, it could be cybersecurity or other areas as well. So I'd say that tech is a very appealing sector for career changes. One, because of these, diverse pathways that you can take to get into the industry, also the diverse types of roles, as we've discussed previously. But also, I think because broader soft skills, human skills make candidates very qualified to work in tech. So previous skills that career changers may have from previous experiences are very valid, when applying for a tech role.
So accessibility and inclusion in tech, equality in tech, these are all intense areas of focus right now. How do you see the next few years shaping up for opportunities for women in tech, for schemes for women in tech, and overall improving the landscape?
So I would like to see continued advocacy for policies that promote gender equality, both led by businesses and also led by government. Things like equal pay, parental leave, anti-discrimination laws, and also an increasing emphasis and support for STEM outreach programs. So really increasing the amount of education and awareness that we have. Again, both from a business-led perspective, so ensuring that businesses are encouraging employees to lead these types of programs and, putting these sort of programs in place to help attract a diverse tech talent pipeline, but also from a government standpoint as well. So yeah, I'd say number one, continued advocacy for policies to promote gender equality, particularly to include education and awareness. I think would also like to see an increased emphasis on allyship and also cultural shifts to challenge traditional gender roles and stereotypes. One of the key examples being often in situations, a man may be perceived as assertive, whereas in a very similar context, a woman may be perceived as aggressive. So, having more of an awareness of these stereotypes and ensuring that they are being challenged. I think as well, we would like to see an increased focus on intersectionality. So recognizing that women's experiences do vary greatly based on different factors like ethnicity, race, class, age, and many other factors as well. But I think we have absolutely made a lot of progress. And by building on this progress and addressing the existing gaps that we see, hopefully we can continue to create a future where gender equity is a lived reality for all.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. As always, you can find links to all of the topics we've spoken about today in the show notes, and even more on our website at itpro.com. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, as well as subscribe to our daily newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe to the IT Pro podcast wherever you find podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show, let us know by leaving a rating or review. We'll be back next week with more from the world of IT, but until then, goodbye.